Welcome to the Learning Reimagined podcast, where we discuss solutions to employee training and development challenges in the Caribbean. We speak with Caribbean professionals who are experts at helping people in Caribbean organizations excel. And we want to help you, our Caribbean audience, level up your teams, your employees, so that your businesses can succeed. In this podcast episode, we're speaking with two cybersecurity experts from Simtai Consulting Limited, Stuart Hylton and Ryan Meeks. Each of them has over 10 years of IT experience. At Simtai, Stuart works as the Senior Manager for IT Compliance and Data Privacy, while Ryan works as the Team Lead for the Application Security and DevSecOps Division. Gentlemen, it's so good to have you here. Stuart, good to have you here. Ryan, good to have you here.
Thank you.
And we're going to be talking about cybersecurity and data security, basically. And for those of us like myself who don't know much about this space, what's the difference between data security and cybersecurity? I don't know who wants to take that one.
Right.
All right. So if you think about it, data security is more focused on data itself.
Okay.
Right. So the protection of data, ensuring that if it is modified or if it is being deleted or if it is being disclosed, right? Ensuring that it is done properly, right? And of course, certain items like data encryption, which is basically ensuring that data is manipulated so that anybody don't just know what that data is, right? Data masking, ensuring that probably certain aspects of data is revealed to only persons who should be able to see it. Data recovery, which I think we kind of have some idea of, ensuring then that data is recoverable when you need it, in case of any corruption that may occur, and you have to draw back for that data that you previously stored. And all of those little things together will ensure that data is secure, right? And that's what we would consider as data security. Cybersecurity now is more on the side of cyberspace, right? And it encompasses data security, or securing data, as well as the technologies that are involved in the cyberspace. So looking on the different systems, different services, all of the other things that will ensure that the storage of data, anything that encompasses the whole cyberspace and how data is transmitted in cyberspace, protecting it from cyber attacks, things like those. So that is cybersecurity, as opposed to data security from my perspective.
Okay. Stuart, have anything you want to add?
No, I completely agree. Data versus the internet. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right, so Stuart, I'm asking you this one. So I get the sense that a lot of Jamaicans believe that cyber attacks are something for overseas people. But there have actually been cyber attacks in Jamaica. There was one at Massey, there was one at NCU. What do you believe are some of the main data security issues in Jamaica specifically? Okay.
Well, I know Ryan can actually tag on to this one, because we've done a few presentations around, and having worked in the technology and security space here in Jamaica, but we've seen a lot of cases of misconfiguration, so, administrators who are trying to secure their systems, not necessarily configuring it in the best way or in a way that really tries to prevent any type of attack. And there's also a challenge with internal users. So, we trust our employees to do the right thing every day, but, even with the best of intention, they may just do something untoward or mistakenly click on a link that then leads to a breach or leads to some level of vulnerability within their environment that somebody can exploit. I know Ryan has actually done some work on this, so I want him to add.
Yeah, and if you think about it, the internet presence has increased.
Yes,
right? We have everybody has a device or multiple devices in a household, right? And just that that increased internet presence leads to a whole lot of cyber attacks, right? It doesn't have to just always be an organization. And what we have to do is we have to ensure that we are educating our general population, right? We have to ensure that households know how to educate their children. What are they supposed to be doing on the internet? What should they be divulging in terms of information or not divulging? And the similar kind of thing in an organization. If you're working for an organization, you should be more inclined to look out for emails that are asking you to do certain things, clicking on links, downloading attachments, right? You just have to be very cautious of those kind of activities. And similar to what Stuart would have mentioned, the whole fact that IT departments, they're not necessarily keeping abreast of what to update in terms of their systems, keeping their software up to date. Also looking on changing like default credentials. So a router or some system might come with default credentials, password 123 as a password, right? And they just fail to change that. Now we've seen that in so many cases.
Wow.
We've done assessments and we've seen where companies still have default credentials for their devices.
Wow.
And something similar, simple like that, would be available on the internet for somebody to just navigate to and say, search for the type of device, the model, and see what passwords are available for that type of device, and they would have access to the password.
Wow.
It's not changed.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how do you think we can educate our population better and educate our children better? So, because you mentioned that in what you were saying a while ago, what do you think we should do?
Yeah, well, personally, having it introduced into schools, right? If we're going to be teaching computer classes and those kind of things too, and having them utilize computing devices, they can introduce it to them. It doesn't have to be a hardcore training, but just mildly just showing them, the best practices. In a nice way, in an easy to understand format. And I guess for the general population, I don't know, introducing it as just having open programs that the government could probably just offer programs that persons could just, be in attendance and just learn town halls. I'm not sure what else.
Yeah, I mean, you can have targeted programs where, there's a concerted effort to ensure that as many people become aware of this as possible, not just from a government perspective, but as well as individual businesses. Even in my own home, I mean, if someone comes into the house and they ask for the Wi-Fi password, typically you go to somebody's place, they're very quick to point at the router box and say, so somebody may ask for my Wi-Fi password and I tell them what the password is because I've taken the steps to change that password from what's on the box. And just in doing that, I can tell a visitor to my home, this is something you should do because this is the risk if you don't change that default password. And you get learning, from things like that. And I think what Ryan mentioned as, building it into part of everyday life at schools and so on is important. Kids should just think of it as a part of doing their day-to-day activities on a computer, that you walk away from the computer, to lock the screen immediately. It's not necessarily a security thing, but it's just a practice that to do on a regular basis, in the same way that that when you leave your home, you lock the door behind you. Those kind of things would just make it a part of everyday practices when using these things.
I was doing some research, right? And I found a statistic that says that 82% of breaches involve the human element, including social attacks, errors, and misuse. So from that, how can cybersecurity training be done at a company so that frontline workers and all staff get the knowledge they need to prevent these attacks? What do you guys think should be done? Let me start with Ryan.
All right. Well, I believe that it should be incorporated into the hiring not the hiring process, the onboarding process.
Okay.
Of an organization. So once someone is onboarded, they would have to go through some level of orientation. Have them go through a cybersecurity awareness training as a part of that orientation process. Right. Apart from that, then you can also have companies similar to ourselves, Simtai, come in and do cybersecurity awareness training, and we can do this on an annual basis. It's always good to test your workers to see if they're actually learning, and if what they've learned they're actually still putting into practice. And because what we do, we take this type of approach. We and this is for us a social engineering exercise that we would perform.
Okay.
We would now perform a cybersecurity attack, right? A social engineering attack. And this can come in many forms. We can do either like a phishing attack, which is through emails. We can do smishing attack, which is through SMS messages, or a vishing attack, which is over voice, where we call persons and we actually try to convince them to divulge sensitive information.
Okay, like scammers.
Scammers.
Right? Okay.
All right. So those are the three type of attacks that we'd usually perform. Once we do that, we now gather certain information from those attacks, and we now use that in the training material. So that would now kind of allow us to skew or tailor what that training would look like for that company. And we'd now reveal some of that statistics to them, saying that, listen, we did this attack and 65% of the company fell trapped to this type. Clicked on this link, divulged X amount of information and so forth. And then what we do now is, after we give them the training and we build them up on the knowledgeable in certain areas, then we would now wait a while and then try the attack again. Right?
To see if they actually
live in what they learned.
Right.
Right. So
makes sense.
Yeah, so that's a part of how we would conduct that type of training.
All right. Stuart, have anything you'd want to add?
Yeah, I would just say, and try to customize your training based on the audience. Don't immediately think, well, we have to give everybody cybersecurity training or everyone has to get data security training, because some positions are not going to interact with it the same way. If you have truck drivers who are making deliveries, but they have, handheld devices to help, track their routes and to see packages, etc., their training is going to be different than your accounting staff in terms of their responsibility when using devices. So, try to customize your trainings and awareness to meet the particular function and role that persons are doing, because then they can apply it. If they get this generic thing that doesn't apply to them at all, then they go and think to themselves, well, I never need to pay attention to this, and they do all the things that they weren't supposed to do. Yeah, so don't take a cookie cutter approach of just, giving everybody cybersecurity training and it doesn't make sense to the role they're in.
Makes sense. All right. So following from that, what should be included in cybersecurity policies, and how should these policies be enforced? Let me start with Stuart this time.
Okay, sure. So similarly to what I just explained, don't take a cookie cutter approach and download a policy from the internet. You think about what applies to your. A lot of people do it. Yes. And we've gone into companies where you'll find a policy and you ask, how are you doing this? And they say, oh, that don't really apply to us, so we don't do it. And you say, where you get the policy from? You say, oh, management handed it down over the years, so it's been something that we just had. So customize based on your environment. If you are in the manufacturing industry, then some of your concerns from the cybersecurity space or from an IT security space are going to be a little bit different than if you're a financial institution. The risk are a little bit different. So customize based on those things. Your policy should speak to the what do we want to do. And, we want to protect information. We want to protect the safety of our people. We want to protect our assets. It should also cover how you're going to how you want to protect things in terms of your confidentiality, integrity, availability, the triad of information security, and consider things like authenticity and non-repudiation, which means we want to ensure that we can find out if a breach does happen, if an incident does happen, we can validate who or where it came from. It shouldn't be a case that something happens and we don't know for sure if it's Christine who did it or if it's Ryan who did it. We should be able to match account for account.
Okay.
So, covering those areas, and, you can follow a standard framework such as ISO 27001 or the NIST Cybersecurity Framework. There's lots of different standards out there, and use those, tailor it to your organization in order to then try to get full coverage of what you need for your environment.
Okay, makes sense. Is there a particular standard that you would recommend, Ryan, based on what Stuart said? Just those that you mentioned, the two that you mentioned?
I mean, there's lots.
Okay.
There's lots. Those are two of the more popular ones that we see in the Jamaican environment. ISO particularly because it's out of Europe.
Okay.
NIST is out of the US, and it's based on government practices because NIST is a government agency, and that's the National Institute of Standards Technology.
Okay.
So we'll see a lot of companies adopting those two. However, there are lots of others that persons can try. Large organizations in Jamaica use one called COBIT, which is a huge standard for what is IT governance and how do you match your IT requirements to your business requirements. So it depends, but if persons were to go for some of the popular ones, those are two of the main ones I've typically seen, and another one is COBIT.
Okay.
And COSO, COSO, for persons who take like a very risk-based approach.
It's not like too much something. Ryan, you have anything that you'd want to add?
No, man. I think Stuart covered pretty much everything.
Okay. So, gentlemen, there is this quote that I found that I'm going to read that says, for many companies, the Chief Information Security Officer is the executive with accountability for cyber risk, with investors and regulators pushing for greater oversight at the board level. The CISO will need to communicate cyber risk and the metrics in terms that resonate with the board, and governance structures will need to prioritize engagement with the CISO on cyber risks. So based on this, what are the cybersecurity metrics that employees should monitor so that cybersecurity is effectively governed? I know that's a mouthful, but who wants to take that one?
I think I'll take a shot of it. So I think about it, two ways. One, as a CISO, what are some of the metrics you want to cover? And then the question asks about employees as well. What metrics do employees want to look out for? As the CISO, you're looking at it from, the governance level, executive level. You want to see the big picture. You want to understand everything that's happening in the gamut of our universe of information security in your company. So you do want to, start with something like a framework such as, I think I mentioned NIST earlier. So there's one called the NIST Cybersecurity Framework that breaks your metrics down into, I think it's 5 or 6 categories: identify, detect, protect, respond, and recover as the main areas. And within those, you have individual metrics such as number of vulnerabilities in the environment, time it takes to respond to an incident, number of security assessments conducted. So, you want to see the big picture from how you're performing on a global level around your organization, including things like number of phishing attacks per day. So you can see the number of phishing emails, because you want to adjust your security program to meet the type of risk in your environment. So if you're getting 1,000 phishing emails a day, then you're going to probably spend a lot of time fine tuning your email restrictions to prevent more and more of those phishing emails from coming through. Whereas if you're only getting 1 or 2 a week, you may not spend necessarily a whole lot of time in that area. So you want to see the big picture. Employees now will want to know metrics such as the number of incidents or the number of Ryan gave the example of doing a phishing simulation within the organization, some social engineering attacks. So you want, we would like to tell employees, of the 200 employees in the organization, five fell victim to a phishing attack based on the testing that we've done, because it just shows this is real. And we would like to show over time that number is improving as the cybersecurity training or your security training continues to grow and mature. So, employees can look at the individual level. What are things that we should be doing better in order to, so you see those metrics, and then, the CISO and executives are looking at the big picture. How are we perform across the board from a, security program perspective?
Okay, that makes sense. And my next question, for both of you. So tech is a fast-paced industry. How can business leaders ensure that their staff is up to date with software updates so that they don't open themselves up to cyber attacks? So since Stuart did the last one, Ryan.
Yeah. All right. So, how to stay abreast with software?
Software
keep them up
updates.
to date.
Yeah. So they don't open themselves to cyber attacks.
All right. So, the first thing I would recommend definitely for organization is to ensure that you have a proper patch management system in place. What is that? Right? I knew that question was coming. All right. So patching pretty much just means then that if a system, the software that is running on a system is outdated, right? Or there is a vulnerability that is associated with that version, right? You want to ensure that it is updated or patched, right? Patch meaning then that there is some type of a fix that was put in place, right? And updating to that newer version will ensure that you're protected from that type of vulnerability. All right, similar to like what if on your phone you'll notice that you probably update it on a regular basis, and it will tell you why you're updating it because you have certain bugs that are associated with that version, right? So doing something like that, ensuring that the company has a proper patch management system in place to ensure now that on a regular basis they actually go through these systems and do the necessary checks and updates to their systems. Would be a good first approach. I would also say then ensuring that you have a good mobile device management software in place.
Okay.
Really and truly what this does, it enables remote devices, smartphones, your laptops, IoT devices. It keeps track of all of them. It keeps track of the data that is being used on those devices. But the MDM would really and truly try to ensure that your devices are kept up to date. It ensures then that of course that if you lose your device, right, you can always find the device. Right, and it pushes all these different updates to your devices without you having to manually remember to do it. So from a company perspective, that would be on the onus of the organization to ensure that of course that the safety of the devices that are issued to your employees are safe. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so my next question. How should a cybersecurity awareness training program be structured and monitored within an organization, especially since there's a great stigma attached to learning about technology? Stuart.
Okay, so I mean, first and foremost, I would say, try to make your program as fun as possible and centralize. So, someone should own it. And that goes for, any major activity. We need to clearly understand and know who is the person that's going to be accountable or, has the responsibility for ensuring that all of our employees are made aware of their cybersecurity responsibilities on a regular basis. In some cases, it may start off with HR, who tries to make sure that before we allow any employees onto our systems, they do an onboarding program, which includes cybersecurity. And then it may include the information security officer, or the CISO, as you mentioned earlier, that provides ongoing updates, or refreshers. Depends. But the point is each person should know their responsibility. Then we want to try as best as possible to make sure those trainings are tracked. So we give the training, we do the refreshers, we do exercise like Ryan mentioned around phishing attempts. So you may have a third party, or even if you have the skills in-house, do some phishing attempts internally. So it's controlled on a regular basis and see how well persons are performing. And that measures the success of your program. And then if possible, sometimes we love the idea of gamifying things, which means we make it fun. A game can be that the cybersecurity training is engaging and persons can actually interact it like a game.
Right.
We've even seen programs that allow you to create even an escape room type experience. So persons have to figure out cybersecurity related or security related trivia or things to get more clues and get to escape a room. So try to make it fun, make it competitive. You can give prizes to the department that, you know, their entire team completes their cybersecurity training first. Give them a prize. Or the person with the highest score gets recognition at your town hall, that kind of thing. So, you know, make it fun, make it engaging, and, you know, make sure to do it on an ongoing basis, because
that's key.
Things change.
Yeah. All right. So there are cyber attacks that occur in public uncontrolled spaces. A lot of people go on the public Wi-Fi's and doing all sorts of things that they shouldn't be doing in public. How can employees be trained to protect their personal devices in public spaces?
All right. Companies. All right. So ideally, companies should be looking on certain policies, especially on implementing certain policies, right? Especially when it comes on to like bring your own device to work and to connect to the work network, all right? Ensuring that they have stringent policies in place, and these policies should be even a little bit more stringent than, you know, the policies that apply when you're actually at physical work, right? Because you're going to be connecting to could be your home Wi-Fi, right? Could be, as you said, a public Wi-Fi, right? And you're not sure exactly what is out there. Right. In a public setting, it could be, and we've seen cases where persons, you know, they just stay around these public Wi-Fi areas like a Starbucks or wherever else, and they are able to intercept the traffic, and they can now look on the traffic, and see if there is any sensitive information being divulged. So doing things like transactions, banking transfers. You might be there having coffee, and somebody says, "Hey, you forgot to transfer, you know, X amount to the lady there today." And that, let me just do it quickly, and without even thinking, right?
Go on the public Wi-Fi.
You have your data, you jump on Wi-Fi, you did that transaction, and the case could be that somebody's there just sniffing it out, and now picks up on that information and now can do a lot with it.
Account.
Right? Yeah. So from a company perspective, I'd say implementing policies, again, utilizing the mobile device management too. And then, you know, training is always, I think you've heard the word training a lot since we started this. Training is something that you cannot overlook. You have to always be training persons how to use devices in any setting, right? What to look out for, what not to do, right? Best practices. Yeah.
Definitely. All right. So this one is for you, Stuart. How can companies go beyond data privacy and protection as just a compliance activity?
Great question. So, I mean, right now, everybody is ramping up and preparing for the Jamaica Data Protection Act, their readiness. And they're thinking of it as just another checkbox. You know, we need to comply, so we have to do this. Let's check it off. However, more mature organizations turn this into their own competitive advantage. Because what you're doing is you're building an environment of trust with your customer, you know, amongst your stakeholders as well. It should be a case that if I walk into my financial institution and they ask me for information about me, I feel comfortable giving them that information because we've built this relationship of trust with how they use my data. So trust actually, you know, becomes that competitive advantage for an organization. And you get to better understand the ways that you can use data in order to interact with your customers and to get the insights you need to better engage with them. So it shouldn't be a case that, you know, I go to a company and they've provided a questionnaire. I have, you know, all these questions, and every time I get to a question, I ask myself, do you need this? Do you need this? Do you need? Because that now creates distrust. And I may ask them, do you need this information? And persons can't answer the question. I'm going to feel uncertain and have this sense of. I remember, you know, getting a phone, just trying to get a SIM card. You used to answer all these questions on a questionnaire. I said, what my mother made a name have to do with a SIM card, so, you don't just think of it as just the compliance activity that it currently is being looked at as in order to be ready for the Jamaica Data Protection Act. Think about the competitive advantage. If you can meet all your requirements, get that kind of stamp of approval and, publish it on your website, publish it wherever you can to say, we are here to protect your information. We have a program specifically geared towards keeping trust between you and us with how your data is being used. That would give me more incentive to do business with a company that can do that versus a company that says, well, we haven't even started the process.
Yeah, exactly. So, and you brought up the Jamaica Data Protection Act, which is a big thing right now. What are the steps that companies need to take to become compliant with that act?
I mean, there's lots. And I mean, we can break down into two parts.
Okay.
The first part is registering with the Office of the Information Commissioner as a data controller by November 30th, 2023.
Okay.
So any organization that collects, processes, and stores personal data, which is data about people or data that can be used to identify an individual, they have to register. What do you need to do to register? You need to be able to identify a key contact or a point of contact in your organization that you can provide their contact information to the Information Commissioner. In some cases, you may have to appoint a data protection officer.
Okay.
And there's limited circumstances for who needs to do that. And, if anybody who's interested in reading the legislation can look at Section 20 for that. Thirdly, you have to provide what is considered your record of processing activity, which is a document that outlines here's all of the processes that use personal data in our organization, why we're using it, how we're protecting it, which data subject categories does this affect. So it's a comprehensive document, and it really is going to take some work between all the persons who use this data in your organization to come together and put together. So that's the first part of getting ready. You need to register. The second part, I would say, is maintain your compliance with the legislation, which means you have to do some ongoing things, such as submitting a data protection impact assessment on an annual basis, which is like your risk assessment around how data is used in your organization. You also need to be able to respond to data subject rights. So if I, as a data subject, call the company one day, or if I've gone through a formal process of asking for my data, they have to respond to me within 30 days. So that's something that companies probably never had to think about before. So you need a process to respond to data subject rights. And that's part of your ongoing compliance, because if you're not meeting that timeline, you can fall out of compliance with the legislation. And another thing, and there's many, so I won't bore you with all the details, but another key thing is being able to notify the Information Commissioner and the data subject if there's a data breach. So you mentioned Massey and other companies that have had data breaches. If they identify that data breach, they now have a responsibility to tell the data subject who the information is about, that this has happened. This is what you can do to protect yourself. This is what we're doing to help to correct the situation. And here's where you can get more information, as well as telling the Information Commissioner that this has happened. In days gone by, they may make one big public statement, or they may not even necessarily, there may be some that probably haven't even told us.
That is true.
No, you have a responsibility to do that within 72 hours of identifying the breach.
And you must tell the person whose information was...
Right.
Wow.
And so if they have an online account with you and that online account has been breached, you have to tell them your online account has been breached. This is the type of data that might have been impacted. Here's what you can do, such as changing your passwords or, canceling your credit card, whatever it may be. They now have a responsibility to notify individuals that this has happened. And gone are the days where you may say, well, we're sorry, move on. You can still say sorry, but the point is identify and notify the persons who are affected.
So, gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Are there any final tips that you'd like to leave about this whole cybersecurity and data security topic? Anything that you'd like to say to the audience?
Well, just letting persons know, don't think that you have to do it all on your own, right? You have experts who are there, especially at Simtai. We are here for you. We are able to utilize our skills to offer you a lot of cybersecurity suggestions. We can do evaluation of your security systems, right? Anything that you're planning to implement. And with that, of course, you'll get a better, more informed, or are able to make a more informed decision, right? Also, we're there, willing and able to do end-to-end testing on your external networks, your internal networks, your mobile applications, your web applications, right? And of course, it's always good to do these kind of tests, risk and security assessments on a regular basis, so that you can know what your security posture is like, right? I always say it's better to be proactive than to be reactive. Right? A lot of persons, a lot of organizations, as we know, they're reactive. They wait until something happens and then they say, we need to do this. It is better to know, be proactive. Think about these things. Actually, have it in your budget. Have something there for security, and spend where it is necessary. And that's what I would leave.
Good tips. Stuart, anything you'd want to add?
Yeah, I'd definitely say be proactive. And from an individual basis, be skeptical.
Okay.
Don't assume because you get an email from David, George, Jane on a daily basis, that's always David, George, or Jane who's emailing you. Be skeptical. Look at it. Always think to yourself, what could go wrong in this situation that you need to prevent from getting even worse. So, be proactive, as Ryan was saying. Similarly for data protection. We know quite a few companies, individuals or so on are waiting to see if anything will happen first. Waiting till the deadline. And, I would definitely say, be proactive. Think of this more than just a compliance activity. You're here to make a competitive advantage for your environment and to build trust with your company, with your customers by getting in line with these things. So be proactive, do the right thing from now, and be prepared because, reacting to an incident or reacting to a breach or reacting to something that went wrong is always going to cost you way more.
Definitely.
It may cause more damage than you even estimated. So, be proactive about what you need to do.
Definitely. Thank you both for being here. Really appreciate it. I learned a lot and I'm not a techie. So I'm so happy that you came and shared this information. So thank you so much. And guys, you can check out Simtai at what's the URL? Simtai.com?
Yes.
Okay, so you can go to simtai.com and check
social
out
media at Simtai.
Okay, and all social media platforms at Simtai. So thank you so much again, and it was a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much.